If you're new here, welcome. I'm Adele Ashley. We talk about books, skincare, life in general on this channel, and I'm actually really looking forward to chatting about holiday books with you guys. So go grab your holiday inspired drink. I am drinking just some hot chocolate with a little bit of that gingerbread syrup I made a few days ago in here. But, you know, we're going to chat about holiday books today because give me the story of a stressed out lawyer who moves to some small town because she suddenly discovered that she inherited a tree farm, or she needs to like reground herself into the holiday spirit and learn that not everything is about work. Tell me about two friends who fell in love over the Christmas holiday after seeing each other all the time. I want Hallmark movie feel-good vibes, essentially, in book form. So I managed to find a couple of books that fit that criteria. Some of them are new to me. Some of them I've already read. But I'll give off the perfect holiday vibe. Like always, I am not going to spoil anything here for you guys. Or if I do, I will make sure that it is very clearly marked that a spoiler is upcoming and make sure that it's down in the description as well so you know your timings. But yeah, essentially, let's get into it. First up, I have Three Holidays and a Wedding by Uzma, Jalaluddin and Marissa Stapley. So this is a multi-faith holiday rom-com about what happens when a plane actually is supposed to be going to Toronto but gets diverted to this small town because they just can't land in Toronto. You have three people in particular who are on this plane. Two women are chatting with each other, and one of them is telling them all about like the lost love of her life, who unknowingly to her is actually sitting a couple rows back and is hearing all about how much she like actually still loves him. You have another who is on her way to Toronto to meet her boyfriend's family for the first time, and like she doesn't really know much about them other than they're very wealthy, and she is decidedly not very wealthy. So she is going and hoping to impress them as well. And then you have the long lost love who has overheard everything that these two women are talking about and realizes that the woman who he also loves is still in love with him. I know that there's also, when they land in this small town, someone discovers that there is also a holiday movie that is filming on location, and they may or may not be in love with the actor or have like a celebrity crush, I should say, on one of the main actors in this movie. But essentially, it's just like holiday vibes, but they're just stranded in the middle of nowhere. And it is also a very special kind of holiday season because you have Christmas, Ramadan, and Hanukkah all happening at the same time. And it is a multi-phase rom-com, so you do see all three aspects of those play out in the book. This is on my December TBR book list. I'm actually going to start reading it in a couple of days, so be sure to check back for my December reading wrap-up because we will go into it there. So I actually read this book earlier in the year. The Christmas Orphans Club by Becca Freeman was a 3-star read for me, and it is included in my October book wrap-up. The Christmas Orphans Club is a holiday rom-com about 4 friends who spend every Christmas together as they have nowhere else to go. So Hannah's parents had died when she was a teenager, I believe. Finn's parents disowned him when he came out, and the two of them start this tradition of just going on these adventures on Christmas Day. And over time, it gets like more and more outrageous. It started out as just Hannah and Finn, and slowly they start adding Theo and Priya into their group as well. So eventually it's like a foursome who are doing this every year until Finn announces that he will be moving to LA in the new year, and Hannah just kind of spirals out of control because she starts to realize that after years of them doing this kind of holiday tradition and every Christmas this is what they do, things are about to change a lot because Finn is not going to be there. On the flip side, Hannah also has family members and a boyfriend who is trying really hard to get her to do things with him and his family. So she has a sister who's inviting her to things. Her boyfriend really wants her to spend Christmas with his family as well. It's just kind of difficult because she doesn't want to commit to that, but she also, it's just very difficult for her because she doesn't want to commit to doing things with her boyfriend's family when every year she always does this thing with Finn, and she just doesn't want to give up tradition or leave room for new things to happen. And then you also have Finn, who has been in love with Theo since they first met. Like, day one, he has been in love with him, and he's not sure where things are going to go, and he knows his upcoming move is going to be the end of the relationship, or so he thinks. But essentially, this is a rom-com, but I would say it's more like, it's more about platonic love. It's about the love between friends as opposed to like a romantic love between people. You do have people who are in relationships. I mean, Finn being in love with Theo is actually a very big plot point in this book, but at its core, it's like a story about friendship, and it was a 3-star read for me. I really enjoyed it. I also read A Merry Little Meet Cute. I've also already read A Merry Little Meet Cute and A Holly Jolly Ever After by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. So these are actually 2 different books in the same series. I believe it's called the Christmas Notch series. They're super cute. It essentially follows the filming of a holiday movie for a channel that's very much like the Hallmark Channel. And essentially, A Merry Little Meet Cute starts off with someone who was an adult film producer, and he owns like an adult film company. He decides that he wants to go into like mainstream media a little bit more, so he starts filming, like he pitches essentially this and decides to produce this very wholesome holiday movie is kind of the only way to describe it. Like, it's buttered up. It's a Hallmark Channel wholesome movie, very much fade to black. They kiss in the last like 5 minutes of the movie, and the problem is at the very last minute his star for the TV show drops at the very last minute the star for the movie drops out, and as he's scrambling he ends up putting one of his best adult film stars into the movie. So she goes in, and you know, he's also, our producer also has the makeup artist from an adult film set in there, and just kind of everyone is from the industry, as in this very wholesome movie, and it just kind of goes from there. It's a very spicy, very steamy romance. I really enjoyed it. And that's A Merry Little Meet Cute. A Holly Jolly Ever After can be read as a standalone because while it is still set in the same universe, they are very much 2 different stories. There's just a little bit of overlap in terms of characters from book 1 popping up into book 2, but essentially they're like a very spicy, or like I should say, it's almost like if a Hallmark holiday movie was just exceptionally spicy. But they're great. Both of them were 3-star reads for me. Number 4, I have The Wake Up Call by Beth Leary. So it follows 2 hotel receptionists and arch rivals who find a collection of old wedding rings and compete to return them to their rightful owners while discovering their own love story along the way. It's the busiest season of the year at the hotel that they work at, yet the hotel is really struggling and it's just not going to stay afloat through the holiday season. So they are looking for any sort of miracle, and they have this genius plan that if they return these rings and they get the monetary award related with it, that they might actually be able to save the hotel. Along the way, they discover their own love story, and because this is a Beth Leary book, I know that this is going to be so much deeper than what the synopsis says. I'm really interested in seeing if we find out a little bit more about who, as they return these rings, the story behind the rings, and the people who are in, who the rings belong to. I know that there's probably going to be some sort of twist in there that you didn't see coming. It's just, I know it's going to feel good, and in a way it might actually be a little bit heartbreaking. Her last book, The No-Show, was something happens in it that's just kind of like, oh my god. But I am here for it either way for The Wake Up Call. A Winter in New York by Josie Silver just seems cute. So it does fall from autumn into the holiday season, I guess. And it follows Iris, a chef who decides to move to New York City to restart her life, and she quickly realizes that New York is like not what she thought it was. And her idea of New York is really kind of based on watching these old films about New York City with her mom, and they would eat this like special gelato together. And one day one of her friends drags her to a very famous autumn street festival in Little Italy. And she sees this little family-run gelateria that looks exactly like the gelateria in a picture that her mom has. So she returns the next day and meets Gio, who's the handsome owner of the gelateria, and he lets her know that the shop is in danger of closing. And his uncle Gio, who's the sole keeper of their family's like secret gelato recipe, is currently in the hospital in a coma. So she somehow convinces them to let her try a little bit of the last batch of gelato that they have, and Iris quickly realizes that the gelato that they have is actually the gelato that her mom was making all the time, but she didn't know that it was a secret recipe. And she doesn't really know how to also tell them that she knows what this recipe is, and because she doesn't know of a connection between her mom and Gio, she's like, how does my mom have this recipe? Why was it given to her in the first place? So she offers her services as a chef to help them recreate the flavor, and finds herself falling for Gio and his family. But then Gio's uncle wakes up, and all the secrets Iris has been keeping threaten to ruin her new life and the new love that she has found, and she just really just doesn't know where to go. Personally, I think that this can go so many different ways. I'm really interested in finding out what the relationship between Gio and her mother is, and why or like how she came up with the recipe. Part of me is like, is it really just her mother's recipe and she gave it to Gio at one point? Is it Gio's family's recipe and it's been given to her because he used to love her? Or still loves her even. I read You With a View by Jessica Joyce earlier in the year, and I loved kind of like that aspect of the grandparents or like the older family members having this relationship and the kids discovering it. So I definitely think that is going to be a similar vibe with this book. I also discussed this book in my November reading wrap-up, but It Happened One Christmas by Chantel Guertin is a charming and rollicking holiday rom-com about a big city film director who must convince the dreamy yet grumpy mayor of a small town to give her the permit she needs to film her Christmas movie in this idyllic hometown. The description for this book literally said perfect for fans of Hallmark holiday movies, so I know it's going to have the perfect vibe with it. And I'm just excited to dive in. It's like a little bit of a grumpy sunshine as well, so like who doesn't love this like grumpy man at Christmas? Like, who's just like all bah humbug, and seems like she's gonna come in and be like, please let me film my movie, please let me do my thing here. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I also disclosed recently my love of sports romances, and Time to Shine by Rachel Reid is a hockey romance about finding your place, finding your people, and finding your way back to the one you love the most. It follows Landon Stackhouse, who is called up from a Calgary farm team, and which is exciting and terrifying for him at the same time. He's the backup goalie, so he rarely ever actually leaves the bench in a game, and Landon is described as a quiet loner by nature who gives off this very strong like don't talk to me vibes. And the only player who doesn't seem to realize that Landon is very kind of like standoffish and don't talk to me, don't bother me, is the superstar young winger for Calgary, Casey Hicks. So Casey treats Landon like he's an old friend. He's charming and completely laid back, which is like the complete opposite of Landon entirely. They have nothing in common, but Landon needs a place to live that's not a hotel room, and Casey has just bought this like mansion that has too many rooms that he knows what to do with, and he hates being alone, so he suggests that Landon moves in with him. As roommates, Casey refused to be defeated by Landon's one-word answers. He's determined to be his friend, and Landon starts to slowly notice things about Casey, like his wide, easy smile, his sparkling green-blue eyes. his personality, and as they spend the holidays together, it only intensifies their bromance turned romance. But then the new year approaches and the countdown to the end of Landon's time in Calgary is on, and they need to figure out where they're going to go from there. So this looks cute. Like, I love the kind of idea that they don't know where it's going to go, what's happening. It's just, will they, won't they? Again, it's another Grumpy Sunshine. Like, how can you not love that? Breaking through that shell, and then friends to lovers as well. So, like, 2 tropes that I love. So, The Holidaze is essentially one of my favorite Christmas movies. Like, if that thing's on, I will stop in my tracks and watch it no matter where I am. And The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox is essentially just The Holiday in book form. Except it's set with twins instead of 2 strangers who are swapping places. So, it follows Chef Charlie Goodwin, who gets hit on the head of an LA set for the cooking show she's a judge on, and she ends up losing her ability to taste and smell, which is actually kind of integral to being the judge on a cooking show. And meanwhile, her identical twin Cass is trying to hold her own life together back in their little mountain town while running the family's bustling bakery business and dealing with an ex who just has not gotten the memo that they are not together anymore. So a desperate Charlie asks Cass if they could swap places, which is something they haven't done since they were kids. And, you know, it ends up being more complicated than they thought it would be, especially when there's like a rugged firefighter, Jake Greenman, who's in the picture, as well as Miguel Rodriguez, who is described as this gorgeous physician assistant that seems to be like circling around them and thrown into the mix. And they try to figure out, like, will this swap be a recipe for a disaster, or does it have all the ingredients for getting their lives back on track? I mean, it's just, again, I keep saying it, but it's just cute. It looks like such a fun read, and like I said, I love The Holidaze, so I'm sure that this is going to be just as, like, heartwarming and kind, I guess, with a little bit of, like, Parent Trap, like, vibes in there together. Like, I'm so curious about this firefighter and the physician's assistant and who they all are. So, Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrun has actually been on my TBR list for the longest while, but I didn't realize it was actually set at Christmas time, so I will be diving into that for sure. She actually wrote The Charm Offensive, which is one of my favorite books. So essentially it's about this young woman, Ellie, who had her dream job in animation and had this really perfect Christmas Eve meet cute with this woman in a bookstore. And she ends up falling in love with this woman over the course of a single night. But then there's some sort of betrayal the next morning, and she ends up losing her job shortly thereafter and finds herself adrift and alone and desperate for money. And then fast forward a year later, she's working at a local coffee shop, and Andrew, the shop's landlord, drunkenly proposes this plan where they have a marriage of convenience that will give him his recent inheritance and alleviate Ellie's financial woes, as well as, like, all the isolation that she's feeling since her life kind of got turned on its head. So to keep up the ruse, they plan to spend the holidays together at his family's cabin. And however, when he introduces his new fiance to his sister, Ellie is shocked to discover that it's Jack, who is actually that woman she fell in love with over the course of that one magical Christmas Eve the year prior. And now she must choose between the safety of this fake relationship with Andrew and the risk of something real with Jack. It's like, it seems so sweet. I really like Alison Cochrun's books. They always have this kind of, like, just warm charm to them. And I also kind of love the aspect of, like, does she do the thing that is very safe and marry Andrew? And, you know, financial security is a big thing. So does she go after that, or does she follow her heart and this one night meet cute that she had with Jack and just kind of, like, go from there? It looks adorable, so it's definitely going pretty much to the top of my list. And then finally on my list is In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. I read this when it first came out a couple years ago. I believe it was a 3 or a 4-star read for me, and it was absolutely adorable. It essentially follows Maylin Jones, who, while Christmas is the most like wonderful time of year, it's not for her. Like, things are just going, everything that could go wrong is going wrong for Maylin. She's living with her parents. She hates her going nowhere job, and she's made a romantic error of epic proportions. And worst of all, it's the last Christmas that Maylin will be at her favorite place in the world. So every Christmas, her family and 2 others go up to this snowy Utah cabin, along with like these kids who she's essentially grown up with, and she finds out that it's going to be the last year that they are all going to be at the cabin. So as she's driving away at the end of the Christmas season for one final time, she throws out what she thinks is like a really simple plea to the universe, and she's just like, show me what will make me happy. And then all of a sudden there's like a car crash, and when she wakes up, she finds herself back on the plane and discovers that she's heading, it's the start of the holiday season, and she's just flying to Utah now to have this whole holiday season with everyone at the cabin. And what follows is there ends up being a whole bunch of disasters that keep happening. So she keeps experiencing the same thing over and over again. Every time something happens that doesn't go right, she ends up back on the plane and starting the whole holiday all over again. And essentially she's trying to figure out how to break free of this time loop, but also finally get her true love under the mistletoe. So it's fun. It's very repetitive because you are going through the same day again and again, and she's trying to figure out kind of what to make it better. There's the 2 brothers as well. It is a rom-com, so there's 2 brothers who she's kind of in love with both of them, kind of. But essentially, it's a Christina Lauren novel. Like, you pretty much know what you're going to get going into it, but it is a sweet little holiday read. So that is my holiday romance TBR. Let me know if you have 1, read any of these, and 2, what is on your TBR and holiday list for the last few weeks of 2023. I'll include links to everything below, and I can't wait to chat books with you in the comments. Till next time, have a great day.